Hey everybody, welcome back to the Senators Roundtable. I'm your host Jacob Billington in a bit of a different setting than usual. I forgot my work laptop at work, and so I'm in a bit of a different setting with my home PC. So welcome to my living room. Paul, Dayton, it's nice to have you as per usual. We'll start with you, Dayton. How you doing real quick?
Good. Tired. I'm about ready for the school year to be over. Got a couple of weeks left, but yeah,
Yeah.
I need a break.
Yeah, I feel you. I work in the school system as well, and it's by the time we get to Christmas break, it's like we desperately need this.
Yeah.
Paul, how are you?
Oh, I've got a bounce in my step today. Jacob went into my beer league hockey dressing room, and those horrid Toronto Maple Leaf fans, there are a few in the dressing room. They're trembling in fear about facing the Senators tomorrow night. I'm going to that game. So I'm really looking forward to Senators, enabling Senators fans to quiet those horrid Leaf fans with their chants of "Go Leafs, go." So
Well, I think we're in pretty good shape. I think there's going to be a lot of Senators fans in the building, and hopefully we can start getting more Senators fans than Leafs fans in the Canadian Tire Center. That's a pretty good goal.
yeah, well,
Uh,
they're not, they're not from Toronto. They're all, hillbillies. They've all married their cousins from the surrounding Ottawa Valley and Gananoque. So, it explains a lot of their behavior in Ottawa. Can I say that out loud on this show? Well, I already have.
we'll see if Matthew cuts that out.
Yeah, I was just
Um,
gonna say.
um, yeah, so there's pretty big news that came out of Ottawa today that we're just going to dive right into. And that was that Jacques Martin, former head coach of the Ottawa Senators, has been rehired as a senior advisor to the coaching staff. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know of any other people with a position titled that. There might be some other people around the league in positions similar to that. Now he's going to be behind the scenes with Daniel Alfredson, Ben Sexton, a few other guys that are working with the coaching staff, but not on the bench. Massive hiring, extremely exciting thing for the Ottawa Senators, and might be what's saving DJ Smith's job. So I have a few stats and stuff I'd like to get into. I have an article coming out tomorrow morning, or the morning that you're listening to this, most likely. So first off, I just want to get your initial thoughts on this, Paul.
Well, I was listening on the drive home to some of the chatter on radio. I heard DJ Smith talk, and he looks at it as, look, it's another tool that I'm being given to help me
Yeah,
do a better job, optimize performance of the team. Okay, I'll take that at face value. A lot of speculation earlier in the day that I heard that Martin could be he could be the new head coach in waiting. I don't believe that. He's past his prime. He's 71. But I'll take a DJ at face value. This is a management group that I don't think they're menacing anybody, with losing their job if they don't perform. They're probably taking the view that, look, we want to do everything we can to help you succeed. We're not out to get you, and so here's another tool
yeah,
that at your disposal to help turn things around. I think that's the way DJ's looking at it. He has, Martin has a wealth of experience and history in the league, and I'm sure DJ's grateful that he can draw on it.
yeah. And you mentioned that you don't think that this hiring is exactly a DJ replacement, which sure, it's obviously not. He was hired in a different role than head coach of the Ottawa Senators. But I look at this exactly the way that Steve Staios came into the Ottawa Senators organization. This is the guy that is going to be probably the interim coach if push comes to shove and DJ has to get fired. He's probably going to be the interim coach until they find a suitable guy, which will probably come after Steve Staios, who replaced Pierre Dorion, who is now the interim GM, is going to come in and find his new GM, who's going to find their new coach, right? So there's a lot of I'm above you, but I'm also like ready to take your job if I have to kind of situation here. So to break down the position, kind of, it's and part of the title of the article coming out tomorrow morning is Jacques Martin's job is to coach DJ Smith on how to coach. Like he's the coach's coach right now, which is perfect for this situation. I'll get into that a little bit later, but Dayton, what are your thoughts?
So I think you hit the nail right on the head. This is very similar to the Steos situation coming in with Dorion. Technically, Steos was, the in-between guy between him and Andlauer.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, Dorion had to go. There was a massive misstep, the whole Dodonov thing, and you can't not have consequences for that. All of a sudden, Steos is the interim GM. Now you've got Jacques Martin coming in as the coach's coach, the in-between between Andlauer and the coach, or Steos and the coach, however you want to look at that. Smith is on hot water. In hot water?
In hot water, on thin ice, whatever.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Did I mention I was tired? Smith is on thin ice and in the hot seat, and whatever analogy comparison you want to make. He is basically one big misstep away from losing his job.
Yeah.
I think we can look at it however we want. We can give it a real nice spin. He is one big mistake away from not coaching in the NHL right now. The Senators don't want to have to do that. They want to have a guy in there to help him and make him a better coach. That's a great business model. But there's other reasons why Jacques Martin is there, and I think everyone knows it. He is there because things have been bad and they need to be fixed quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Paul, you had something you wanted to add?
Well, if I were Steos at this point in the season, and I know this is controversial to say, but the Senators season, in my opinion, it's highly likely that it's over. They can't play the kind of hockey that they need to play to make the playoffs. So if I'm in Steos' position, what then I want to see this team pushed. I want to see them stressed. I want to see how much of this is due to the players and how much is it due to the coaching staff. So two things I could do here. I could have Martin help DJ push these guys, or I could fire DJ and appoint, as you point out, Jacob, Martin as interim coach and have him push these guys. But I want to get to the bottom of this. There's things that just would, if I were Steos, that would make me uneasy about this team. I've seen them, we're quarter way through the season. There's just been too many occasions on which they haven't fought hard, they haven't battled, and they haven't shown the guts that a championship team needs to have. I want to get to the bottom of that. And I think the only way to do that is to push them. And so I need the right instrument in there, whether that's DJ that I'm pushing, that Martin is pushing to stress those guys, or I fire DJ and I put Jacques Martin in place and have him do it. But I want to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, absolutely. The root of the problem does not just sit in DJ Smith's hands. There's more to it than that. And you're absolutely right about that. So I do think, so I'm going to get into kind of what I wrote about today. So I think that this is giving the Ottawa Senators the best of both worlds. So right now they have a head coach that they adore. Every single one of these players want to play for DJ Smith. He has a lot of the fundamentals to be a good coach in the NHL. Like he knows how to be a coach in the NHL. He has plenty of experience doing it. He doesn't know how to win. He doesn't know how to have a good defensive structure. Those are things that you need to be a successful coach. Jacques Martin is bringing that, and he's gonna, like I use the word coach, he's gonna coach him into learning this kind of stuff. And so Jacques Martin had a fantastic defensive structure when he was the Senators coach, and now he's going to bring that back to the Ottawa organization. He's going to give it to DJ Smith. He's going to help teach those players how to do this kind of stuff. I expect he'll be part of practice. So now they have the guy that can really teach them that structure and the guy that they'll run through a wall for. That's the way I look at it. I think that it's a fantastic mix to have both of them present in the coaching staff. Obviously Martin is not going to be on the bench, but they're still going to hear his voice.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I think you got it. I think it also harkens back to what Andlauer said about the two-headed monster, and having those two guys who can really take charge and add, boost each other in the areas that they lack, and support each other in the ones that they are strong in. So
Yep.
I think there is a real good aspect of having both of these guys as, coaches essentially.
Yep.
But what I was struck by last night, I think was it the first period intermission when they showed a clip of Andlauer talking about, they asked him, well, what do you think of DJ, and all the cries from section 323 for his head fired DJ.
Yep.
And my goodness, he looked awkward. It was a question that pained him.
Yep.
But it was not a ringing endorsement of DJ. I'm not sure what he really thinks. I'm sure he knew that whatever he said would be broadcast out to his fan base, and there is market. So maybe he was just being a good politician, but it sure wasn't a ring. If I were DJ Smith, I wouldn't be feeling too warm and fuzzy about what he said. So,
Well, I
yeah.
think part of what he did was take some humor in it. He said the 30 fans in section 323 just chanting for fire DJ. Like, everybody got a little bit of a chuckle out of that, including myself. But he wants to stick with his guy because he knows that the leaders on the team want to stick with their guy. And that's where I sit with it. But there's not much of a vote of confidence you can give him right now. And I don't know what else Andlauer's supposed to say there. Like, he's generally very good in the media and always has the right answer. But there's not much positive. Like, obviously last night, which he didn't see the game before that interview, obviously, because it was before the game. But the last two games, there's a little bit of confidence you can instill in your coach. Those were two gutsy wins. They outplayed by every margin the best team in the NHL and had a great game against Seattle. So they're on a bit of a streak right now, just two games, but throughout those two games, they played really well.
Right. And, in Ottawa this morning, I mean, everyone's planning a Stanley Cup parade. The debate is,
Yes.
does it come down Bank Street or Elgin Street? But, I think, okay, good. Congratulations, guys. You beat arguably the best team in the NHL. But here's the thing. New York walks into town. They're the class of the NHL this year, and they walk into town against a second-rate team like Ottawa. Ottawa's up for it, and they upset them. And I suspect that if they did that tonight, the next night, that would be an entirely different outcome. So, in a sense, bad teams like Ottawa, it's often the case that they just upset teams like New York, because New York teams like that just don't take them seriously. So I wouldn't read too much into this win. The Kraken, yeah, you bet they better beat the Kraken, for God's sakes. But so we'll see tomorrow night. I'm going to that Leafs game, and I think I'm sitting in section 323. So if you see me there with a sign, but no, I won't be there with a sign.
Yeah. The only thing that I'll add is that for those of you, and this isn't just about you specifically, for those of you who are on that fence of, I'm not going to read too much into that win against the Rangers, I think you also have to be on the fence of, I'm not going to read too much into that loss against the Blue Jackets, right? Because the Blue Jackets, Ottawa objectively played one of those really good games that they just lost. And so it's one of those situations that you don't win 82 games. Unfortunately, Ottawa has sucked for all the games beforehand, but that was one of those games that we played well, we just didn't win. That's one of those games that the excuses of, oh, the bounce didn't go our way, we ran into a good goalie.
Yeah.
I can justify those after that kind of game. It's all the other games that DJ Smith says these things that's when everybody gets fed up.
Yeah.
I have a couple stats here from Jacques Martin, just with his coaching stint in Ottawa. Now, of course, this is 20, 25 years ago that all this happened, but still worth noting. So headed into the 95-96 season is when he got his job. Dave Allison, the Senators were playing under Dave Allison. The team was, I believe it was 2 wins in their 25 games previous to the hiring of Ryan. No, not Rick. Oh, wow. My brain is melting. Jacques Martin.
Right there with you.
Yeah. Rick and Ryan bonus. Yeah. No, but so 25 game span, they won 2 games under Dave Allison, and then Jacques Martin came into town. So, including the first half of that season, unfortunately, I couldn't get just the stats of since Jacques Martin took over, but including that miserable start, there were 738 games played from the 95-96 until the lockout, which is his tenure, and he coached 692 of them. During that time, the Ottawa Senators had the 9th best goals against per game over that entire span. They had the 8th most wins in the NHL. They had the 7th most goals for, and they were top 10 in both power play and penalty kill for almost a decade. That is like over almost a decade. Those are fantastic numbers, and it was not a good team that he was walking into. There were a lot of good pieces there, like Alexei Yashin really thrived under, I almost said bonus again, Martin. But yeah, like there was a lot of great things going on for that team, but they just couldn't put it together. Ottawa's in a pretty similar situation, but not nearly as bad. A lot of the fantastic pieces are there. They just need to learn how to put it all together. And one of the biggest things that Martin kept reiterating today is that these young guys need to learn how to play a 200-foot game. It doesn't just come on day one. Like obviously you see Shane Pinto comes in. He has a decent 2-way game since his rookie season, since his first game in the NHL. But these guys like Brady Tkachuk, Tim Stützle, they need some help on the 200-foot game. Drake Batherson, certainly. So yeah, like he's coming in to do that. He's coming to help with the defensive structure, which he is fantastic at.
Yeah, well, yeah, I agree with that analysis, Jacob. Yeah, he has his credentials as a defensively oriented coach, and that's exactly what the Senators need at this point. Whether they can execute, though, that's another question. Whether they can play that 200-foot game. And I think he's probably the type of coach that will have some candid assessments of who's on the roster and whether they can play that type of game. And may provide insights that DJ, because of his style, isn't prepared to accept or act on.
I think one of the biggest takeaways from this, underratedly, is the fact that DJ Smith, and I don't know how many times bonus is about to come out of my mouth. I apologize. Martin and Smith, I don't know, they didn't have any connection prior to the hiring, which I think is fantastic. So it's not going to be like, oh, hey, buddy, let's figure this out and let me hold your hand and walk you through this. It's not like that. He is Martin's coming in to be his boss, and that's an important thing. And they're going to have that kind of managerial relationship, and I don't think he's going to be afraid to tell Smith what's going on.
No, I don't think he's going to be afraid to tell Smith what's going on either. But I wrote an article. It came out this morning actually on 5 candidates who might replace DJ if he's fired. Jacques Martin wasn't among the 5, but I mean, there's only so much that you can pin on a coach here. I mean, he's not an idiot. He's a hockey man. He's played
exactly.
He's played in the NHL. He's coached. And I go back to the players, and I know in Ottawa, everyone's enamored with the tremendous talent we've got in Ottawa. I get all of that on paper, but man, I've seen these guys. DJ can't go out there and quarterback a power play. He can't go out and run the penalty kill. The players have to do it. They have to have the will to win. And that's the question, do they have that? Where DJ may fall down, where I could fault him in my books, is he's not prepared to call these guys out. And, maybe Martin will.
Yeah. I mean, you can't watch that Rangers game. We were gonna talk a lot about the Rangers game, but I think we might pass on that. We've kind of had a lot to talk about today. But you can't watch that Rangers game and tell me that Brady Tkachuk doesn't want to win, or that Matthew Joseph, like, he looked fantastic. Anton Forsberg, like, there's so many guys up and down the lineup. But you're right. Throughout the entire lineup, there's a lot of guys that you just don't see that drive from. Like, especially toward closer to the bottom six. Like, you look at Parker Kelly. You look at Dominic Kubalik. Absolutely, I almost glossed over him. Like, these guys just don't seem like they really, really want it.
I mean, a lot of guys can come out swinging in a fight for the first couple of rounds, but the test of a championship team is consistency. Consistency. You've got to do it night after night after night, and I'm not convinced that there's the roster there that can endure the grind that you have to endure to win championships. So, if Jacques can point to the players who aren't doing that or turn them around, great. But that's where DJ, in my estimation, is falling down, is holding them accountable.
Yeah, and they've just developed losing culture. Dayton, is there anything else you wanted to add on the Jacques Martin hiring and anything like that?
Yeah, sure. Just kind of adding to what you and Paul were saying about, like, this is a skilled roster. There is some depth issues. You mentioned Parker Kelly. That's honestly, for me, a little disappointing because he hasn't been good in most of the games he's played this season. And at one point, he was the hardest working player in the farm system. Like, I'm sure he has that award somewhere, or at least it's a piece of paper or something like that, right?
Yeah.
He was awarded the hardest working player, I think, in Belleville. Or
2 years, 2 years in a row in Belleville.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure he won it with the Prince Albert Raiders too when he was playing in junior.
Yeah, he did.
He's an incredibly tenacious player. All these guys really, really want to win. It's just they don't know how to.
Yeah.
Like, there's this losing culture, like you mentioned. They don't know how to take that desire to win and transform it into a National League level worth of effort.
Yeah.
It's like you mentioned, the consistency, and Jacques knows how to win. Like you said, he has an incredible record with the Senators over 25 years ago. That was a sad number to bring up. It was 25 years ago.
Yeah. His last season, he wasn't a coach for the Senators after the lockout.
No, and like, I knew that. That doesn't feel like 25 years ago.
25 years ago.
Anyways, after I feel old.
You feel old.
Yeah, I know. I can't say a whole bunch, but I don't usually get those feelings. That one hit me because I remember cheering for the team at that time. It was great. Jacques Martin has the 22nd most wins all time among coaches.
Yep.
That's a guy, and we talked about this before, guy who comes in with an aura, he has this presence, and that's what the Senators needed. And we were all of the opinion, like, okay, we need to get Smith out of there to get this kind of guy in.
Yeah.
But Staios and Andlauer decided, no, we'll bring someone in and have Smith because we'll get the best of both worlds, like you're saying. So I think it's a good situation. I think it's also a tenuous situation. And hopefully you can get some more out of these really hardworking guys who just aren't working. Except McEwen. Can we get rid of him already?
Senators are best when McEwen and Hamonic have a combined 7 minutes of ice time.
Oh my goodness. Did you check on the advanced stats for McEwen on the Rangers game? This is all I'll say about the Rangers game. We'll move on.
I did not know.
So I checked on Money Puck. I like doing the advanced stats because you guys get the eye view. I'll take in the other numbers. And he played 2.5 minutes. Yeah. Which was like, okay, why is he there? I think that was 3 shifts. Like, it was nothing.
Yeah.
And in that time, he had a 0 for expected goals for. And what
was the goal against? Do you remember?
I have it right here. On ice expected goals against 0.56. Nope, sorry, that's Hamonic. 0.05. Like he was a nothing out there.
Yeah.
Literally nothing.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I never want to crap on a player, but the stats are kind of telling there.
In the way he's being used in the Senators is pointless. He should
Exactly.
not be on this team.
Yeah.
He could find success somewhere else or find success in a different deployment. Right now, he is being used terribly and hurts the team.
He was successful on the Flyers and the Kings. Like I was all aboard the bringing in Zach McEwen. Maybe 3 years was a bit much, but I had no problem bringing Zach McEwen into this roster. But just the way he's being used is it's hurting him. Like that's not what he does.
No. And like what? I think he threw 2 hits in those 2 minutes. Like,
well, that's not bad.
It's not bad, but that's it. That's all you did.
Yeah.
But what happened to Yuri Schmiegal? Where's he now? I mean,
he's still in the AHL.
Oh, he didn't take off, eh?
He did not take off. So there was a report that he was moving over. I believe I think it was like Elite Prospects that posted it, that he was headed back to Europe. But he said no, he still wants a path to the NHL, and here we are, not giving him that. So
yeah, get rid of McEwen, bring in Schmeichel. He would do better.
Or at least see if he'll do better. Like I know he hasn't been fantastic in the AHL, but see if he can do better in the NHL.
He'd do better.
you try. Like I don't
know. I'd put money on it.
Yes. All right. We're gonna take a quick break here. We will be right back. All right, and before we get into our next topic, I just wanted to mention the Ottawa Senators Substack. So we have the Ottawa Senators Substack. You can subscribe for free and get all the articles sent directly to your inbox, or you can have a paid subscription to the Ottawa Senators or whatever other teams you'd like. And so with that, you get tons of premium content that are only available to you. So those are things like audio podcasts, quizzes, whole bunch of different stuff. So if you're interested in that and getting the best content available to you, head down to the description and find the link there and go subscribe. So check that out. Thanks. All right. So Thomas Chabot, he came back for a game and a half. I don't have his ice time for that second game against Seattle, but he didn't look bad. He didn't look good. He was just kind of a decent player for Ottawa at the time. That game against Seattle, he was looking better, but then he kind of toe picked, headed into the corner, and his knee bent in a weird way. He left the game, came back, which the fact that he came back tells me that it's not an ACL or an MCL injury. So that's my prediction at least. It's likely that tomorrow or today, while you're listening to this and it comes out, we're going to hear more information on that. We thought it might be today, so we were kind of hoping to have a little bit more to build on off that. We don't know how long he's out yet. What do you do in the meantime? Because this blue line is miserable without him. Like it's not good. Travis Hamonic is getting ice time. The Ottawa Senators actually look pretty good with the 11-7 roster, but now again, we don't know if he's out for the full season, so you can't bank on that $8 million being available all season. But like, what do you do in the meantime? Let's say that they're 20 games, and let's say that he's out for 35 games. What do you do? We'll start with you, Dayton.
With me. All right. Yeah, that's a tricky question. Because for all intents and purposes, this season is done. Whether fans want to accept that or not, the Sens aren't making the playoffs. I think Money Puck has them at about a 35% chance to make the postseason.
Yeah.
But they also have to get past Pittsburgh, who have Erik Karlsson, who seems to be doing all right there as their little four-headed monster. And I think the Islanders, they have to get by as well.
Who have been terrible as of late, but yes.
True. Yes, that is someone they could, but they still have to surpass 2 teams to get in.
Yeah.
And none of them look like they're slipping all that much, aside from maybe the Islanders.
Yeah.
So the Senators have to choose whether they are just going to give up or they're going to try to finish strong. I think it would be smarter to try and finish strong. You need to develop that winning culture. And I know the games don't matter, but there's still that chance they could slip into that 8th seed spot, that wild card spot.
Yeah.
That needs to be the focus.
Yeah.
It would be really nice to get that, top 10 pick. You get a top guy, add to the farm system, just pause the success for another year. That's 8 years. That's almost a decade. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
No team suffers for 8 years and then thinks it's worth it. That the Senators need to be making progress. So you need to be making progress this season, even if in the end it's probably not going to work out. And that
I will say that the Senators have so many games in hand. If they win, it's a lot, but if they win 5 of the next 7 and they get caught up in the games, they're comfortably in a playoff spot.
That's true.
That's it's not impossible for them to make the playoffs. It's not impossible for them to get back in the race, right?
It's not impossible.
Not very likely with the way that they've been playing, but it's not impossible.
Yeah. If the Martin signing ends up completely changing this team, great. I think that's awesome. I still think it's not happening. That doesn't change the fact that with Chabot out for an extended period of time, you make a trade. The Senators need to have another guy in there who can eat minutes. And no, you don't need another Chychrun or you don't need another Sanderson or whatever, but just getting one of those solid defensive depth guys who can play some valuable minutes and work well with either like Brandstrom or Hamonic, take away some of the minutes that he's playing because he's a bottom 6 guy right now. Bottom pairing, I guess. Give Bernard Docker some more important time.
Yeah.
That's a guy who's shown that he can do well. But I think the best thing to do right now is bring in a guy, and yes, that will involve some cap shenanigans. But there has to be something. You have to change the way you've done business because clearly the business is not working. The strategy that's been in play for 7 years has resulted in nothing.
Yep. So right now the Senators' blue line looks like Sanderson, Bernard Docker, Chychrun, Hamonic, Brandstrom, Zub. Now, I don't want to break up Brandstrom, Zub. They were incredible against the Rangers. Unbelievable. So I want to keep them there, even though it's technically the third pairing. They got lots and lots of ice time, and they earned it, and they played fantastic. Sanderson and Bernard Docker could have been a bit better, but they were fine. Chychrun and Hamonic is where the issues were. And so if you can get a right-handed defenseman and throw Hamonic out of the lineup, why not? So one thing I might propose. So the 35 game was just an absolute shot in the dark. I have no idea. But let's say it is that. That brings you about a week, maybe 2 weeks before the trade deadline. Do you trade for Chris Tanev today and then flip him at the deadline when Chabot's almost ready?
Oh, that's
that gets you by until the deadline. That gets you by until Chabot's back. That's just an idea that popped into my head now. It doesn't have to be Chris Tanev. Put in blank as the name, but a player that will take over a right-handed position and fill in that second pair with Chychrun. Is that the kind of move that this team has to make, Paul?
Well, on that one, Jacob, I'd say why. Look, I agree with Dayton. The Senators aren't going to make the playoffs this year, so
right. But that's the problem is that they also have that mindset, and that's the losing culture that we're talking about that has to change.
Well, yeah, maybe might be a losing culture, but if I own the team, what I want to see is what have I bought? What do I have here? So if it were me, I'd say, look, you've got 3 horses you could ride. You've got Sanderson, Chychrun, and Zub. They're untouchable for this year on that roster. And then I would open up the remaining 3 spots to a tough competition. Okay, boys, I'd go to Belleville. I'd be saying to Bernard Docker, Cleven, or Clevin, and the others, look, this is your chance. So we're going to give you a shot. Step up. Let's see what you can do. And what you do for the remainder of the season is going to determine the rest of your life, at least with this organization. The playoffs, sure, you can say, well, and I hear it all the time. If they have a good December, if they can win 5 or 7 games, they'll be in a playoff position. Look, they've got the next 9 games are against teams that have assured themselves, well, to this point, they've got a playoff spot. Things are going to really ramp up here for the Senators in terms of competition. So I wouldn't be chasing dreams. I guess what I'm saying, I wouldn't be chasing a mirage here. Let's bring in Tanev. Well, hey, why not Hanifin? He's from Calgary. Apparently he's for sale. I think that would be short-term thinking. It's not going to contribute to your long-term success, and that's the problem. Tanev's what, 36 years old?
I think he's younger than that, isn't he?
Yeah, maybe I got that wrong. He's a little long in the tooth, and he's going to cost you to bring him to town. I'd be worried about,
He's 33.
He's 33. Okay, he's no spring chicken, and he'll cost you. So what are you trying to do with moves like that? Just this season's done. Focus on the next season, the next 3-4 years where you've got a window of opportunity, and don't be chasing after shiny objects like Tanev. I mean, that's the way I'd approach it.
All right, so you're solving that problem internally then.
Yeah, solve it internally, and at least you'll see what you've got, and then you can go out and make some trades. If you determine that, hey, we don't have the horsepower that we need, okay. Next year, you got plenty of cap space. Go out and buy what you need. That said, however, defensemen in this league are really, really tough to find. Who's out there that you could acquire? Well, Tanev, but
I get you. Dayton, what do you think of? And again, it doesn't have to be Chris Tanev. That's just the name I threw out because that's the name all over the headlines. But what do you think of that idea? Is that something that the Senators should be all over? Steve Stais should be over, or are you more with Paul?
No, I think that a trade needs to be done. I think that, there's been, let's conservatively say 3 years of evaluations done on this group of players.
Yeah.
I think that tells you everything you need to know about this group of players.
Yeah.
You've seen them in kind of the worst, and you've seen them almost come back to get a playoff point. A playoff position, I should say.
Yeah.
That's pretty good, right? You get a really good look at what these guys are capable of. And right now, this group, as it is not capable of winning games. Yeah. At least not winning to the point where they can be a competitive force in the postseason.
Yep.
So something has to change. And I think Tanev might not be the right choice. Like you guys mentioned, he is 33. He's also, I think, on an expiring deal.
He is on an expiring deal. Yes.
Yeah. So that's another thing that I don't think the Senators should pursue. They don't need more expiring deals. Yep. They don't need to flip guys. That's for a team that is making the playoffs. You get that deadline rental, and then you go for it. The Senators aren't there. Hanifin is much more interesting. Only 26. Makes a little bit more than Tanev, but he's a guy who has a little bit more defensive consistency and can put up some points. Will have to involve some cap moving as well, but I don't know. There's guys that are making too much money on the Senators. Get rid of them. I also mentioned a few other guys in an article I put out a couple of weeks ago. And one of them was Pierre-Olivier Joseph in Pittsburgh.
Yep.
So he has some really interesting underlying numbers, despite playing not very many minutes. And of course, the Penguins are going to be looking at making the playoffs, and they're much closer than the Senators. I assume so. I don't have the standings right in front of me, but I know that they're ahead of them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you could
pretty much everybody
pull away one of those depth guys, send over someone like Hamonic. He's cheaper, he's younger, and he knows more about winning than the other guys.
Yeah,
I would say that brings in a new voice, that brings in some good teamwork, right? You got the Joseph brothers reunited. I think that would be fun. Yeah,
I think the only issue with that is that, well, in that specific situation that you talked about, is that Hamonic has to waive his no move clause.
fair.
Um,
Yes.
which if you bench him long enough, I think he's going to waive it to play somewhere else. Like if he's going to get the opportunity to play somewhere else, if he's benched all the time, then
Yeah.
that's yeah.
We started this segment out. I think the question was, what do you do with Shabbat? Shabbat, do you trade him or not? Couple of points I'd like to make on that one. I don't know. He's 26 now, and he really hasn't come into his own.
Yeah.
He's hasn't lived up to his alleged potential. Diminished value now. What would you get for him? Would you have to retain some of his salary? I don't know. Maybe you're stuck with Shabbat. What do you guys think? What would he fetch on the open market,
If
given
you're
what he is now?
if you're looking to move Shabbat, there's going to be plenty of takers. I think, I mean, Winnipeg is just fine with Josh Morrissey, but maybe there's a move there to be made. Maybe you bring in, I don't know, Shabbat for Brendan Dillon and Nate Schmidt half retained, because I know that they're looking to get rid of him, and maybe a second round pick or Chaz Lucius or something like that, right? So I do think that there is definitely a market for him. Um, there's plenty of people that would be more than happy to take on Shabbat. He does not make too much money, maybe $1 million overpaid. But yeah, it's just right now it's health that's the biggest issue for the center. If Shabbat's healthy, hasn't missed a game yet, is projected to play 82 games, I think that the Senators are in a much better position, right? And I know that everybody was critiquing his play before the injury, but man, the Senators are so much worse without him.
Yeah. No, I think if you trade Shabbat, that is a trade that you lose 10
Yeah.
times out of 10, 100 times out of 100. Does he make too much money? Probably. He has not lived up to his 15th overall selection either, except for that one season where he had 50 points.
55 in 70 games.
Yes, 50-ish.
Yeah.
He has been ruined by Smith.
Yes.
And maybe that's a bit of a hot take, but Smith played him into the ground.
Yeah.
Playing him 30 minutes a night. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's how you wreck a player's development, especially if what is he, 26 still?
Yeah.
That's too much. So a lot more game management needs to be employed. And we all know that the reason Smith did it was because no other defenseman was worth playing.
Yeah.
Which sucks. And that was just the reality of the team. But now there's defensemen worth playing. And you can protect him a little bit more. Let him play his style of game, which is more offensively minded. Maybe you start putting him with Zub. See what that does. You have a guy who kind of protects his back end, and you got then Shabbat who can rush the puck and create those chances. So I think, trading Shabbat is a mistake. The fact that he's injured is, and I'll say it very plainly, is Smith's fault. In the long run, that big picture. I think having Martin in there will, like you said, defensive specialist should fix some of that, get some other guys helping him out, at least from the forwards as well, and see if you can make a move, maybe for Hamonic. The no move trade clause is annoying. Why does he have one? Why does Hamonic have a no trade clause? That's stupid.
It's foolish. It is.
It's just a long list of Dorian blunders.
Yeah.
He really likes Ottawa.
Great. Play better.
Yeah. So if you look at the projected healthy blue line, you got 4 left-handed defensemen: Jake Sanderson, Jacob Chychrun, Thomas Chabot, and Eric Brandstrom. I am perfectly fine with the left side being Sanderson, Chychrun, Brandstrom. That's a fantastic left side of your defense. Sure. Chabot doesn't fit on the right side. He did not look good on the right side. Chychrun doesn't look good on the right side. Sanderson looked all right, but much better on the left side. You're not going to trade Sanderson. You're not going to have this team under DJ Smith is not going to have Sanderson, Chabot, Chychrun on the left side. That's He doesn't roll three pairs. That's just how it is. So, like, do the Senators have to trade one of Chychrun or Chabot right now? Like, I don't know. I don't know where to go with this.
I think that's one of those desperation moves that you have to make. I think if someone looks okay on the right side, maybe try to give him more of those skills.
Yeah.
Ugh, not great.
So when Chabot comes back, do you go Chabot, Bernard Docker, Chychrun, Sanderson, and then Brandstrom Zub?
I think that works.
I think that's the
I'm
best
fine with
blue
that.
line they can.
Yeah.
I think that's the best one they can ice. So
Yeah. You could even switch Zub with Bernard Docker, I think, right?
yeah, I think that would be the play in the long run. I just really, really like Brandstrom Zub in that last game.
Oh yeah,
I'm
no,
really
they were
hoping that
great.
sticks. Yeah. So
Yeah, and Chychrun was the problem in every pair he played with. He was not good with Bernard Docker. He was not good with Hamonic. He was okay, barely with Zub.
Yeah.
And Zub with Brandstrom was fantastic. So clearly,
yeah,
if it looks like a duck and talks like a duck,
might be a duck. Yeah. So I mean, either of you have anything else you wanted to add on this?
I'm shocked. Chychrun haters. My goodness.
I'm not a Chychrun hater.
No, not a hater. But he played bad last time.
But he might be a duck.
All right.
No, I'm a huge fan of Chychrun, and obviously he got off to an incredibly hot start this year, and he's cooled off. But I'm perfectly fine, especially at $4.6 million for this year and next. I expect that there's going to be an extension given out this summer. Yeah, so
Sure.
I put out a piece. We're not going to go too deep into it or at all. We're going to wrap things up here in a second. But I did put out a piece yesterday and just talked about like how the Senators desperately need this cap to rise. So next year they have $10 million ish available. And that's without Tarasenko, Kubalik, Chartier, and Pinto and Brandstrom. No, they have $12 million. I allocated $2 million to Pinto. So that's Brandstrom, Tarasenko, Kubalik, and Chartier. They have $10 million to plug. It's still going to be tight, even with a big cap rise and a bunch of dead cap coming off, because Sanderson already signed his extension for $8 million next year. So that's something to keep in mind.
What's the contract? What's the problem contract?
What do you mean? Oh,
why are the Senators this tight with such a young roster? Like Stützle is signed to a great deal. Sanderson's signed to a pretty good deal. Chabot maybe a little expensive, but not far above market value. Right? Other guys are making around where he is.
I think the problem contract is one of your left-handed defensemen. You pick who? That's you've got over $20 million on the left side of your defenseman. That's too much, right? And so that's where I'm tying this back to. That is the problem.
That's fair. That also reminds me of a situation that happened 20, 25 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Senators
it's
ended up
gonna go bad.
Yeah, it was going to be Chara or Redden, and look what Chara became, huh?
Yeah, and look what Redden became.
Well, exactly.
Yeah. And like that was the guy they chose, and it was a dead heat, right? They probably made the right choice at the time.
Yeah.
At the time, they did. Yeah.
At the time,
yeah. No. Yeah. Revisionist history, you would have chosen Chara all the time.
Yeah.
But they had to pick one of them. They let Chara go to free agency. They signed Redden. Redden ended up laying an egg. Chara ended up winning a cup.
Yeah. And one of the best captains in like NHL history. Like he was fantastic.
But they really only could have kept one at that time. And now they're back in that same situation.
Yeah.
That's they never learn. It's been the same problems for 30 years.
Yeah.
Lots to write about.
Yes. So let us know what you would do about either the defenseman situation or the cap situation, whatever way you want to spin it. Let us know in the comments or on Twitter. There's just so many ways to solve the problem, but no ways that anybody wants to solve the problem. That's going to wrap things up for today. Paul, Dayton, thank you for joining me as always. I had a lot of fun today. Some great conversations today. Really happy about Jacques Martin joining, not Rick Bonus. That's not, got to get that out of my system. But yeah, so thanks everybody for watching. Hope you enjoyed and have a great day.